Now, you say there are three different engines for independence that drive adolescent growth: separation, opposition, and differentiation. Explain those to us.
Well, when you move from parenting a child to parenting an adolescent, you go from attachment parenting, where you're trying to create a secure dependency, to detachment parenting, where you're trying to create a secure self-reliance. And to do that, what happens is the young person has to push for more individuality and independence. And they do that by separating from childhood and to some degree from family and parents. They do that by differentiating and trying out various kinds of definitions and images for themselves to figure out an identity that seems to work. And they also exercise more opposition, trying to operate more on their own terms. And all of that is just part of this growth process that starts around 9 to 13 and ends up a little after the college age years.
Oh, how it does. I want to ask you, because the stuff you've written on this is so important, but it's very rational. And I know that we need to be rational as parents, but there is little more emotional for a parent or for a child than that beginning separation, because you're used to this child that needs you. You're seeing that relationship going away. You are in a sense of seized panic, at least the first time, thinking, oh my gosh, my baby doesn't love me anymore. That's how it feels a lot of times.
Well, but you're absolutely correct. I mean, adolescence is not for the faint of heart, either for the kid or the parents.
Right.
For the parents, it starts with loss, which means that as the loss of childhood, the childhood in words or actions is now saying, I no longer want to be treated or defined as a child anymore. They want something more. They're not quite sure what. And so now what happens is the parent will never have that little child as adoring little child anymore. That golden period is over. It doesn't mean adolescence is not wonderful. It just means that particular period is now over. And for the child now knows in early adolescence, around 9 to 13, that they cannot go home again. They cannot go back to that simpler, sheltered, more secure world where they were just kind of nestled in the family circle.
But they have moments. They have moments, Dr. Pickard, where they do. You know this, and that is really confusing for the parent, because they have moments where they all of a sudden want to do something or eat something or play something that they did when they were 4, but they also want this independence and this freedom. And so to the parent looking at this, they're going, what do you want from me, right? Do you want mommy, or do you?
That's terrific, because that's right. Because the kid is hugely ambivalent.
Yes.
Part of them wants to grow forward, and parts of them wants to go back. Parts of them want to be treated as older, part of them as younger. Part of them is mourning what they are now missing from the old treatment that they used to enjoy, the hugs and the kisses, but now they're prickly in early adolescence, and they can no longer accept those kinds of things, but they miss them. So it's you get these wonderful mixed messages. Don't do it for me, but give me help. And all of a sudden parents are saying, well, which way do you want it?
Exactly.
And the kid wants it both ways, and that's just part of the ambivalence of the age.
Yes, and you say, and I thought this was so critical, you say, don't compare the adolescent to the child. As much as you're going to want to, and as much as that's going on in your mind and their mind, that's a mistake. Why?
Well, because when you do that, you're likely to make an unfavorable comparison, and then all of a sudden you think that, the child was just wonderful to live with, and now you've got this abrasive young person, and, there's something there's something the matter with the young person the way they are now, and they used to be more wonderful to live with. And that's not a great message to send. I mean, what happens is, to me, adolescence is at least as wonderful as childhood, because what you do is, as a parent, you get to witness the child growing into young adulthood, and once puberty hits, you see the girl growing into young womanhood and the boy growing into young manhood. This is hugely exciting, and being part of that transformation is terrific. It's just different.
It is different, and I think stopping to appreciate that, instead of comparing your child to the childhood that they're missing too, and focusing instead on what is blooming in them. So you say, I like the way you put this. You say, and I'm paraphrasing, but you say something like, be sure and acknowledge the stage where they are before you give the criticism. And one example you gave saying this, we know that you will want to argue with us more about freedom, but how you argue must be done in a civil way, and there are limits to how
Right.
long we'll argue back. So you're telling them, you're setting a limit, you're still being parental, you're still claiming the authority that's so important, even in adolescence, because I think some parents forget they can say no in adolescence, and that's mistake number one. But you're also saying, hey, we get that we have to have this conversation about more freedom, and that you're feeling this need as a blossoming, amazing adult on your way to being a blossoming, amazing adult. But there still has to be our authority. There still has to be some limitations. I like that, on how long we're going to argue about it. That's a great goal.
Well, yeah, I think, part of it is that your parents have to keep, you move from, again, you don't just move from attachment to detachment parenting. You move from popular to unpopular parenting. And part of the unpopular parenting is that the relationship now, the healthy adolescent pushes for all the freedom they can get as soon as they can get it. And healthy parents restrain that push within the limits of safety and responsibility. And that conflict of interest unfolds over the course of adolescence.
It's
and
funny
it
because
makes the experience more abrasive. Not all the time. I mean, people are not destined to go through agony with their adolescent. It just says that there's going to be more abrasion as a function of this detachment, this growing apart, this growing individuality and independence. And, it's a dance. It's like a dance. Everybody's learning to do the steps for the first time, so it's a little clumsy sometimes. But that's okay. You hang in there with your communication and with your caring. And going back to what you picked up, which is really important, you teach the kid to conduct disagreement, argument, conflict in a safe and constructive way. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very, very important, because now is later, and this young person is just an adult in training. And how they learn, for example, to conduct argument and conflict with you is how they will conduct those argument and conflict in later relationships of their own. So all of that, parents have a huge instructional role going through adolescence.
In concentrating, as you say, and I like this a lot, on how normal the process is. Hey, we are meant at this point of your adolescence to begin to redefine our relationship as parent and child, and this is completely normal. Letting the child know that the feelings they're feeling are normal, because some of the things they're feeling really seem abnormal and even offensive to parents, but parents still have to be the adult here, knowing things like, when you criticize your child, they're going to say, I don't care what you think, when absolutely they care more than ever what you think, because it's that adolescent time where psychologically they're like little sponges, and everything you say pierces their heart. And you say, if you don't acknowledge that in your child, they're going to be acting out in school.
Well, yeah, that's a good. The I don't care statement. I mean, there are a lot of coded statements. The I don't care statement essentially says, I care too much to let you know how much I care. And that's right. The parents, just because the kid rolls their eyes, looks away, doesn't want to talk to you, appears not to listen to you, doesn't mean that you don't matter. Kids listen to their parents. Mm-hmm. Parents don't always listen to their kids. Kids always seem to enter what parents have to say. That's a reference point that they need. Sometimes parents, and I see it more with dads and adolescents and moms, they're not as good at conflict or comfortable as conflict as as moms are very often, and so it puts them off, and they kind of pull away, and they decide, well, if all I'm going to get is arguments, I'm just going to reduce communication, and that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, I do. I think that so much of what you've put in this article, Psychology Today, is just critical. And tell folks where they can find your work.
Well, the best way is they can go to my website, www.carlpickhardt.com, or they can go to Psychology Today and look up my blog, Surviving Your Child's Adolescence.
Some great advice here, Dr. Pickhardt. Thank you so much. I'm so blessed.
It's been fun being with you. Take care.
Thank you. You too. I was going to say I'm so blessed because homeschooling really does avert a lot of this, and I don't know why, I don't know how. Someday I need to figure out the psychological reasons why, but definitely do educate yourself before you try to deal with an adolescent, because it is so counterintuitive the way that you need to behave versus the way that your gut tells you.